G'day folks, Sophia Botha here, with another edition of the Botha Show. We've got a packed show tonight, but before I get going, a bit of housekeeping. First of all, I forgot to record last night's show to my hard drive, otherwise I would have clipped out and posted up the segment we did on India Willoughby being a transphobic so-and-so yet again. And I can't seem to download it from YouTube. I don't know why YouTube's not allowing me to download it. So I might have to redo that segment again and then post it up as a separate video. Because what I want to do is obviously because not everybody has the time to watch a 3-hour stream. Basically clip out various segments and post them up as separate videos. So, it's more bite-sized for people. The other news is next week I'm hoping to get Aria de Meslo back on the show. It'll be a pre-recorded interview. There's some stuff going on. She's being basically, shall we say, I wouldn't say persecuted, but certainly discriminated against for being for trading in Bitcoin. I think is a little unfair, and I also want to get a take on Biden, because for a libertarian, she doesn't have the typical libertarian take on Biden. I mean, this is Aria. She is certainly somebody who is of her own mind. So which is why I like her. I mean, I just we don't agree a lot about politics. Well, there's some social issues like prostitution and drugs obviously overlap with with me being liberal as fuck. But I love Aria's swagger. I really do. I think she's, I just, I always want to give her a big hug. Also, next week, I'm hoping to get another pre-recorded interview with Jane Fay, who has been a friend of mine for many years, and is, for those who don't know, is a top trans journalist and activist. And I want to get her take on the current state of trans rights in the UK, which unfortunately aren't good. Now, one other thing, I need to mention this. Please, to those people who follow both me and my fiance, can you not go onto her stream and talk politics? It's inappropriate for what she does. She does stuff about retro gaming and retro television stuff, right? And I when I go on her channel, her streams, I don't want to talk politics. Okay, this is what this stream is about. So I would say to anybody, who follow both her and me, please can you, just come on this channel, come on this stream, and we can talk, politics. Just please, be thoughtful there. Okay, well, we've got a packed show, so the usual housekeeping. Can folks please? Sorry, wrong. Me bad. Please do follow me on Twitter. I'm hoping to get to 4,000 followers by the end of the month. I've actually lost a couple over the last couple of days. I'll admit, one of the reasons is I didn't do the usual commentary on Question Time last night, mainly because I forgot it was on, and that might be because I have to say I kind of feel the last few editions of Question Time have been as mundane and boring as it gets. I mean, it's never like thrilling for the majority of people, but even for political anoraks like me, I was bored shitless. Anyways, I will follow anyone back who isn't a TERF or a fascist or somebody who's trying to sell me something. Okay, if you're a spammer, fuck off. All right. Bit worried that'll be a red rag to a bull now. You can also support me on Patreon. I will tidy up this page over the weekend if either I'm not too drunk or hungover while watching the rugby. Yes, more about the Six Nations later, by the way. You can also donate to me. There's a link below with all my social media links. There's a PayPal donation link. I still don't know if it works because no one's donated. So you know, I'm not going to put a gun to anyone's head and ask them to, donate to me. Also, I don't know. I think I might have briefly mentioned that it's LGBT History Month this month. It's also, of course, Black History Month. The LGBT people, we have a history of much suffering, but we have also a history of overcoming that suffering and, contributing a great deal to society. So I think we've got a history to be proud of. The only complaint I have of LGBT History Month is, why isn't it LGBTQ History Month or LGBT plus History Month? I know it's a slight thing, but it's about being inclusive. Okay. Anyways, on with the show. So, this has gone viral today. Yes, you don't have the authority. This is a parish council meeting. Just watch for yourself.
Who's this woman? There.
Right, we'll start the meeting, and I want to repeat what I said at the beginning of the last meeting, that this meeting has not been called according to the law. The law has been broken.
It has been properly
Will
called.
you please let the chairman
Mrs. Weaver, please.
If you disrupt this meeting, I will have to remove you from it.
You can't.
It's only the chairman who can remove people from a meeting. You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver. No authority at all.
She's just kicked him out.
I
Just a minute. No, she's kicked him out. Don't. She's kicked him out. Don't.
This is a meeting called by two councillors.
Illegally?
They now elect a chairman.
No, they can't because the vice chair's here. I take charge. Read the standing orders. Read them and understand them.
Dear me.
Appalling behaviour.
Chairman gone.
A copy of this will, in fact, be sent to the monitoring officer.
I hope so.
Out of those people...
Where's the chairman?
We
Read
elect
the standing orders. It now reverts to me.
Where's the chairman gone?
Read the standing orders.
like to elect a chairman for this meeting.
You don't have to elect a chairman. There's a chairman already installed. The chairman of the council.
Councillor Burkle, we've been through this.
You don't. What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. The chairman of the council is the chairman of the
council.
The chairman of the council is the chairman of the council. Yeah. Jackie Weaver does seem to be a right little Adolf, doesn't she? Putting people out of a Zoom meeting. Which is the parish. If you've ever watched The Vicar of Dibley, this is the parish council. Yeah. There's always been, cynics have always sort of thought that the people who sort of go forward to get elected to these positions are authoritarian busybodies, and I hate to say, but this kind of reinforces it, and it also reinforces you know, what I've said, that all politicians are cunts. Anyways, already, right, there's one of these, which member of the council are you? Tests. I thought it'd be fun to start. We'll start to take it. Okay, so shall we? So who are you? Who are you on a night out? The one in the smoking area having some deep chats. Well, I can already tell you that's who I am, but we'll go for the rest. Arguing with the bounce for not letting you in. The one dancing. Fuck off. Do I seem like I'm a great dancer? Because yeah. Having the one dancing, having a great time. The one getting all the drinks in for everyone. The one in the bathroom crying. The one in the bathroom comforting the crying person. The one on a mission to pull. Well, I am the one. I'm the one in the smoking area having deep chats. What was my favourite subject at school? Maths, English, history, geography, art, music, PE, IT. Well, it was either art or history. I'd say art because the art teacher actually did like me. It was one of the few teachers who did. What do you do when your mates are arguing? I probably caused the argument, so continue arguing. Defend my friend and get involved in the action. Sit on the sidelines watching and laughing. Try and stop them from ultimately making things worse. Actually intervene and manage to calm everyone down. Walk off with the drama. So I can't pronounce that word. I'm probably the one who starts the fucking argument. What's your typical background? A load of books to show off how clever I am. Yeah, that's always the case, isn't it? Have you noticed, since COVID, that you have all these politicians now being interviewed via Zoom and Skype, and they always make sure they've got loads of books in the background to, somehow say that they're really clever. Actually, did someone get caught out using a false blue screen of a bookcase? I do remember reading someone or other did. Anyway, so yeah, a load of books to show off how clever I am. Nothing. I'm interesting enough as it is. A few paintings or family photos. A nicely decorated wall with a sweet wallpaper. The kitchen. My musical instruments. Well, nothing. I'm interesting enough as it is. What do you do when a friend upsets you? Try and have a nice conversation with them about why they did the thing. Shout at them. Tell them how disappointed you are in them. Cut them out of your life. No need for toxic energy. Wait for their apology. And if it doesn't happen, oh well. Well, have a guess. Yes, I shout at them. Where do you like to spend Friday nights? At the cinema, at the club, at a friend's house having a civilised dinner, on a date with my partner, at home chilling, out and de-stressing from the week. At a book club, at a gig, at home having a big dinner with the family. Well, I actually like chilling out and de-stressing from the week. Though also I'd like to be out on a date with my fiance, who I miss terribly at the moment. But that's what I usually do. I usually just chill out at home. How much chaotic energy would you say you have? Yeah. I was an only child. So, and finally, do you have the authority? Yep, I do. Oh, I'm Brian Tolver. Thanks for misgendering me, Test. I know, but Tom's going to use this against me now. You took that test and it said it was male because you really are male. Fuck off. Yeah. Seriously. There used to be this, I think it's still around, a thing called the Cognati test, which is, it's a really long questionnaire to see how gender dysphoric you are. And I remember there was this trans woman many years ago who asked me to take it because she didn't think I was gender dysphoric. I took it, and it turned out I was more gender dysphoric than she was. Ha 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 ha. And I didn't know how. I know people say, with questionnaires you can manipulate them. Yes, you can, but I didn't know how. Anyways, so talking of that parish meeting, the video of that Zoom parish meeting, that's not the funniest council meeting I've seen in the last year. I don't know if people remember this. So, to set this up, if anyone's seen the First Naked Gun film, there's that scene where Frank Drebin gets up from the news conference with his mic on and goes to the toilet. Well, just watch this.
This is Ms. Chandra.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try and keep this brief. I won't belabor all the details. I'm sure most of you remember Mr. Guest's presentation from last time, and I imagine he's going to hit some of the highlights here in a minute. But I do want to just say that if your life has not already been touched by an antibiotic-resistant disease, it probably will be at some point. My mother has fought a MRSA infection. I have a high school friend whose 3-year-old son almost died from C. diff, and he will be dealing with the consequences of that for the rest of his life. But the thing is that these deadly infections, there's something we can do about it. And what we can do is call on governmental representatives that are higher up the chain of command. And ask for action at the federal level. I am aware of Mr. Brainerd's concerns that he raised last time, and there would be instances where I actually agree that we should take action locally first, but there are not any KFO operations in Georgetown, so for us to just say it within the city limits would be an empty gesture. And also these diseases don't know any boundaries. So a state-by-state approach would just mean that there'd be clusters of disease.
It says toilet humour is never funny. Right. Now, yes, I've been meaning to talk about Captain Tom Moore. He is a national inspiration. He's a national fucking hero as far as I'm concerned. Fuck the COVID idiots. This guy, he raised over 30 million pounds for the NHS. Just by walking on his walking frame around his back garden. I think we all should salute him. Obviously, there was the clap for Tom on Wednesday, which I joined in before I went on air. And yeah, this is the kind of person who restores my faith in humanity. He seemed a thoroughly decent person, and it's sad that he raised a lot of money for the NHS in response to COVID-19 and then succumbed to COVID-19. It is really sad. I did actually cry when I heard the news. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I really like. I think this, Tom Moore, Captain Tom Moore was a thoroughly decent human being. But talking of unthoroughly undecent human beings, yes, Richard Littlejohn. We know Richard Littlejohn's a bigot, and he's using the memory of Tom Moore to basically have a dig at Black Lives Matter. Completely misunderstanding Black Lives Matter, as the right so often does. Right? We shouldn't be celebrating slavers, and people who basically have committed war crimes and genocide and shit like that. Okay, no one is saying that if there's a statue of Tom Moore put up that it's going to be pulled down. Of course, it fucking wouldn't be. Right? You'd have to be a fucking uncompassionate, unempathetic, inhuman person to do that. I hope there is a statue put up of Tom Moore. Because he fucking deserves it, okay? These are the kind of people, Tom Moore is the kind of person we need in this world. However, this reminds me that Richard Littlejohn actually has the blood of a dead trans woman on his hands. So let me explain. Yeah, this is back from 2013. And that was, I think that photo was taken at the, that was it. Yeah. So back in 2013, there was a teacher called Lucy Meadows who was transitioning, and she was over the school holidays, and the letter went out to parents saying that she was transitioning from male to female. That she was going to come back to work at school as her female self. And you can see I'm getting a bit choked up about this because I do remember this case. Somehow that letter was leaked to the Daily Mail, and Richard Littlejohn he went for her. And as a result, he monstered her. As a result, she took her own life. And this photo is from the vigil we had outside the Daily Mail offices, and I've never seen so many trans people in one space. I do remember the night, and I also remember it was freezing fucking cold. Okay, yeah, it was, really tragic case, and Richard Littlejohn is. I do blame him. I thoroughly blame him. In fact, I did actually speak at this event, and I did say, at that time, Richard Littlejohn has blood on his hands. I did not pull my punches. So, right. So, right. So, so there's I'm going to read this article because I used to be involved with what was then LGBT Labour. In fact, I was elected to the National Executive for a while. Though, let's just say, other members on the Executive Committee never wanted me around. They were ableist and transphobic towards me. And I've got witnesses to back me up with those accusations, believe me. Including one person who's named in here, who would back me up on that one. So back then, because of the there was believe it or not, there was an awful lot of transphobia in LGBT Labour as it was. It's now LGBT plus Labour. I wish it does just. Why can't I have just adopted LGBTQ again? Yeah, I think that's the common. You always have people such as Rose of Dawn taking the piss out of, how it always change. The alphabet soup always changes. Anyways, back then, because us trans people kind of felt that we our our concerns were being ignored. Unless it was politically expedient, shall we say. There was talk of there being a breakaway trans group. Well, it's happened now. Now, I'm no longer involved. In fact, we'll get to all that in a minute. So, a new group dedicated to promoting trans equality within the Labour Party, has launched, saying there is much work to be done. Yeah, like getting Keir Starmer to give a shit, because it's apparent he doesn't. Labour was heavily criticised for failing to address transphobia within the party in 2020. Yeah, I am both Jewish and trans, right? And I know that there's been constant accusations of transphobia, constant accusations of anti-Semitism in regards to the Labour Party, which we will be talking about, some of which later. And I can tell you, Labour has a bigger problem with transphobia. I'm not saying there isn't anti-Semitism within the party. I've seen it for myself. I remember when the first Wonder Woman film came out, and there was on a Labour Facebook group, they were all having a go at Gal Gadot simply because she was Israeli. That was it. Well, that's simple racism. Okay. So I'm not going to deny there isn't anti-Semitism. But I have personally been subjected to more transphobia within the Labour Party and from Labour Party supporters. Okay, I'm just saying that is my own experience. A year that saw Labour politicians quit rather than support trans equality, lose staff due to their overtly transphobic views. Yes, this is Rosie Duffield, who Keir Starmer refuses to take the whip from. In other words, that would be kicking her out of the Labour Parliamentary Party. Someone actually asked me, would Jeremy Corbyn have done that? He probably wouldn't have, but I think he would have been louder in his condemnation of her bigoted views. I'm just going to say that I think he would have. And yeah, and align themselves with transphobic hate groups. Yeah, the last Labour Party conference, when there was, when there was an actual Labour Party conference for real, not a virtual one of the fringe meetings was a Women's Place meeting. Now, Women's Place are like the LGBT Alliance. They're a transphobic hate group. This was at a Labour Party conference. Okay? I do remember there were concerns raised from the Labour Party conference platform, the main platform, about this happening. I also know people who went down and protested this meeting. But for fuck's sake, how did the organisers allow this to happen and have it, somehow be associated with the fucking Labour Party, the supposed party of equality? And as a result, trans and non-binary Labour members have been quitting, and the party in their droves. With the chair of the Labour campaign for trans rights warning last August that Labour and Keir Starmer's inaction on transphobia would set the party of equality back decades when it comes to LGBT plus voters. Yeah, there is a real danger that he could lose the LGBT plus vote. The LGBT plus community tends to vote Labour. Not uniformly, but I would say the majority of people do look to the Labour Party the Labour Party have done more for LGBTQ people when in government than the Tories have. I mean, credit to David Cameron for basically broadening the franchise of same-sex marriage. I would always, I'm not going to just, have a go at him for that. There's much else I would have a go at David Cameron for, and his Tory government for doing. But, at least David Cameron was, pretty much socially liberal. But it has been the Labour Party, when the previous Labour government under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, who did so much for LGBT people when it came to, equality and social justice. And you just get the feeling that Keir Starmer doesn't seem to give a shit. Determined to tackle issues, the new Labour Trans Equality, the new group Labour Trans Equality, has launched to work within the Labour Party to promote trans and non-binary equality. The new group is co-sponsored by Wolverhampton councillor Anwen Munston, who was first trans Labour councillor elected after 2000. Funny enough, I think the first ever Labour councillor to be trans, the first trans person to be elected a Labour councillor was a person called Terry Webb, and they were a councillor in Lambeth, where I was living at the time. So I remember that. Anyways, Munston said, I believe that if we are to deliver effective and inclusive public services, we need Labour members of Parliament and councillors who reflect their diverse communities, which of course includes trans and non-binary people. Yeah, there is much work to be done, as I said, trying to get, first of all, trying to get Keir Starmer to give a shit. So this is the people involved. Emily Brothers, who is a disabled trans woman, she's blind, and she's also, I think she has a hearing impediment as well. I think she said she did to me. She actually stood as an MP in the neighbouring constituency to the one I live. I did go over there and campaign for her. The only problem with Emily is she's on the right of the party, so we didn't always agree on policy. I have to admit that. Obviously, I'm on the left. And I do remember she actually, when Jeremy Corbyn was elected leader, let's just say that the majority of that constituency party supported Corbyn, and she found herself pretty much ostracised. And I did feel there was also an undercurrent of transphobia towards her as well. I did feel that. Heather Herbert, who I've not met. Susan Hotwood, I've met, but I can't say I know very well. Dr. Natasha Kennedy. Yes, Natasha, she's a lovely person, enormously compassionate and very highly intelligent person. She's a lecturer at Goldsmiths College, and has always been a person who has stuck up for me in regards to people picking on me for being autistic. I'd say I'd also add. So she, as I said, when we were both on sitting on the committee, the LGBT Labour's national executive, and let's just say they decided to have a conversation about me without my behind my back. There was like a email system, round robin thing, and basically I was left off while they had a discussion about me. I'm not going to go into details, but Natasha thought that was highly unfair. Also, the first meeting, the first NEC meeting, they decided to hold in the loft of Wes Streeting's constituency office. Never mind about me not being able to do stairs. Even Natasha was finding it hard to do the fucking stairs, and she thought they were out of fucking order to be holding a fucking meeting there. You know, I was a disability officer. That was my role. That's what I was elected to do. I actually had to resign because I tweeted out something, and I'll admit I get things wrong sometimes, that Liz Kendall was, basically there was a meme going around about something Liz Kendall had said about disabled people. Turned out to be untrue, turned out to be false, so I just resigned. But I could tell, right, that this was during the 2015 leadership election, and of course I supported Corbyn. I should add, LGBT Labour, the other thing about LGBT Labour was they were a bastion of Blairites. Okay. Anyways, onwards. Osh Gantley, councillor in Jeremy Corbyn's constituency, funny enough. The one Corbyn supporter, well, there was one other. There was another Corbyn supporter, and it's a bit of a sort of, I don't know. Yeah, I'll try and explain this. So, the last Labour AGM, Labour LGBTQ, last Labour LGBT AGM I attended. There was a trans woman called, I can't remember her name, I think it was Josie. She was elected as treasurer, right? Now, the next AGM, I couldn't attend, okay? I just got out of hospital and I wasn't well, right? But I was told what happened was she was accused of cooking the books. Or something along those lines. This is third-hand information I'd add. And I can't help thinking, was she fitted up? And I know that sounds really far-fetched and a bit Alex Jones, but the thing is, we know the extent that Blairites went to undermine Jeremy Corbyn and, his supporters. We know the lengths we went. The Labour leaks, which came out last spring, that basically during the 2017 general election, there was a Blairite element within the Labour HQ running a parallel, general election campaign to that of the official Labour Party election campaign, which was basically putting money and resources into safe Labour seats, which were held by those who basically subscribed to the Blairite ideology, rather than putting those money and resources into the marginals, which Labour could have won. And, Jeremy, let's just remember, never mind about the 2019 election, which, was a fucking disaster for Labour, right? No one's denying that. But 2017, Jeremy Corbyn came within 2,500 votes of being Prime Minister. Okay? That is a whisker in British electoral terms. Okay? Remember that. Okay? And I blame the Blairite contingent who could never deal with, the democratic decision of the grassroots membership of the party to elect Jeremy Corbyn as leader. Anyways, Dr. Heather Peto. We'll get to Heather in a minute. And Astrid Walker, who the last time I heard was living in France. I think they're not a fan of Brexit. Well, I don't blame them. I know other people who have emigrated. Are the other co-sponsors of the new group? The group has 5 aims: increase the representation and voice of trans and non-binary people within Labour, to encourage more trans people to join, vote and campaign for Labour to be a strong and clear voice for to trans Labour members and allies, to work with other groups in the party the LGBT plus Labour to promote trans equality and to support trans Labour members to take an active role in public office. Yeah, I agree with all those. Of course, I haven't mentioned, I also obviously know Anwen Munston. What I'll say about Anwen is her heart's in the right place, but I have to admit, I always found Anwen a bit anal and square. She used to be in the services. And, you know, never let you forget that she used to be in the services. I just remember one occasion, funny enough, Osh Gantley, who's what one of the names there, I want to say to Osh, but Anwen could do with drinking some mushroom tea and lightening up. The next thing I know, I get a phone call from Anwen saying, "What's this? You've been suggesting I should take illegal substances." You know, Anwen actually thought that marijuana killed people. I got news for you, Anwen. Marijuana has killed, drum roll, 0 people, and the legalization of marijuana is was part of Joe Biden's election platform. Okay, which we'll have to see if he will follow through. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, marijuana is the best antidepressant and pain, killer I've ever known. Right. So, yeah, I do wish them well. Now, as I said, I was going to get back to Heather Peto. So, Heather Peto was the first co-chair. There was always two, when in my day, there was always 2 co-chairs of LGBT plus Labour. Usually, used to be, obviously, one was gay and one was lesbian, but, we actually said there should be 3, 1 gay, 1 lesbian, 1 trans. Obviously, some people then would say, well, there shouldn't be a bi and, and a queer. Yeah, well, yeah, I always feel sorry for bi people because they do get overlooked. And most people I know are bisexual. So she has resigned. So Dr. Heather Peto has resigned as co-chair of LGBT plus Labour, citing transphobia. Don't surprise me. Peto alleges that other officers in LGBT plus Labour directly discriminated against her, and that while co-chair, she was excluded from important decisions by cisgendered officers who thought they knew more about transgender issues. Yes, that resonates from me. The veteran Labour activist quit LGBT plus Labour, a party-affiliated group that has campaigned for equality since 1975 on the 28th of January. Yeah, this story is a little out of date, I have to admit. Just 3 days after the launch of the new campaign group, Labour Trans Equality, which he co-sponsored. Moreover, in her resignation letter, seen by Pink News, Peter describes the launch of the Labour campaign for trans rights in February 2020 as a warning shot to show that LGBT plus Labour... Right, okay, just before I go on, I do remember that the launch of that campaign, and I also remember they had some pledges, which all the leadership candidates signed up when there was the leadership election after Jeremy Corbyn announced he stepped down. Yeah, Lisa Nandy, Rebecca Long Bailey, Keir Starmer, of course there was also Jess Phillips. Who was also involved, and Clive Lewis, of course. But I do remember when it came down to the final 3, Rebecca Long Bailey, Lisa Nandy, immediately signed up to this campaign. Keir Starmer didn't. See, this is what I'm saying. He doesn't seem to give a shit. Yeah? So, anyways. As a warning shot to show LGBT plus Labour, it could not rely on being the exclusive representation of trans Labour Party members and their allies. she also reveals the grievances led to this split. A motion was negotiated through our transgender caucus for the AGM, which would address most transgender activists' concerns. Unfortunately, it was defeated at the AGM, which led to many recriminations. She wrote in her resignation letter, as a result of this, Heather Peto says, transgender Labour activists started to organise independently of LGBT plus Labour. I think there's a bit in here which he says that there's a bit in here. Here it is. In her resignation letter to LGBT plus Labour, Heather Peto says, I discovered that despite being co-chair, I had been excluded from information and decisions by my own core officers. Yeah, that resonates. As I said, they had discussions about me and made decisions about me behind my fucking back. The problem is, though, I'm wondering what Heather Peto's doctorate is in. Is it believing Daily Mail lies, throwing fellow trans sister comrades under the bus, or just generally being utterly cuntish? Now, I have to back this up, and I will. Okay, so let me explain. About 3 years ago, I used to have a trans blog, and I remember at the time, Heather Peto was coming under fire from TERFs. They were smearing and abusing her. I mean, I think they accused her of being a sex worker. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a sex worker, but obviously this was to damage her, whatever political career Heather has. And I defended her. I defended her to the hilt, right? The thing is, I then had a heart attack. And I was recuperating at home. And on April Fool's Day, someone sent me a message saying, Sophie, you better log on to the Mail Online. There's an article about you. And I thought, yeah, very funny, April Fools. And then I got another message saying the same thing. And then another message. Turned out that one of the blog posts I'd written, where I had basically said that TERFs were fascists, and I'm Antifa, and I believe in the Antifa motto of defeating fascism by all necessary means, was interpreted by the Mail Online as Corbyn ally endorses thumping TERFs, or thumping feminists. I forgot what the actual term was, but so rather than ask me about this, or defend me, no, Heather had me kicked out of LGBT plus Labour. And I just find that really cuntish because, as I said, I was, recovering from a heart attack. I nearly died. And this is what she did to me. And this is why I say all politicians are cunts. Because the first sign of trouble, and you're a vulnerable person, they will throw you under the fucking bus. For their own expediency. Yeah. So what's been said in the chat so far? Oh, hold on. You voted for me, did you, Darius? What in? Were you a member of LGBT Labour? Oh, were you? Let us know. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat. Alright, so I mean, I do risk this breakaway group well, and look, I empathise and I sympathise with Heather for being subjected to transphobia, but that's not fair. But the problem is, I feel I just can't rush to her defence because she did one of the most cuntish things anyone's done to me. I mean, there was another trans woman who did a really cuntish thing to me at that time. More about them some other time. They're a very famous trans woman as well. Anyways, so yet again, you know, they do seem to be getting quite a lot of press well, they're getting press in the LGBTQ press. This is a more recent story. Yet again, they're calling for Keir Starmer, calling again for Keir Starmer to take urgent action on transphobia, and I would imagine they're getting fuck all response. Yeah, the Labour Party needs to take urgent action to eliminate transphobia from within the party at all levels. Yeah, as I said, I've experienced more transphobia than anti-Semitism. This has become an urgent issue, and not one for further debate and dithering. Yeah, you see, the thing is, some people seem to still think there should be a debate about trans rights. People like Piers Morgan. No. Okay? You don't debate whether gay men and lesbians should have, you know, equality, do you? Well, same deal with trans people, okay? Elements of the press and the media, together with individuals and organisations, have engaged in nothing less than hostile campaign against trans people. Yeah, but basically, what the press did in the 80s to gays and lesbians, saying they were predators and perverts and whatever else, they're doing to trans people now. It's the same deal. Unfortunately, the anti-trans activist members of the Labour Party and affiliated organisation have been complicit in this process. Yeah, no shit. Anti-trans activists within the Labour backed recent calls for the Women's Human Rights Campaign that urge MPs to eliminate transgenderism. That's a very onerous term, isn't it? Eliminate transgenderism. Yeah. Look, I wish them well, okay? Despite any differences I might have with some of these people, I do wish them well. But personally, I've given up on the fucking Labour Party. I mean, it's, you know, someone asked me recently, who would I vote for? I mean, I can't vote Green. They've got their own... I can't vote for the Green Party. They've got their own transphobic problems. The Liberal Democrats, fuck off. I mean, the Liberal Democrats might now support UBI, but after the 2010 general election and them them jumping into bed with the Tories, no. The Liberal Democrats always seem to be the party which says one thing and does another. Plus, also, funny, I've got an anti-LGBTQ story to do with the Liberal Democrats. And we talked about parish councils early on. There's a former borough councillor who lives around the corner from me. In fact, she's actually one of the few. Well, actually, she's the only other Jew I know who lives in my area. And yes, when she was a borough councillor, I remember once talking to her at the time when civil partnerships became legal. Same-sex civil partnerships. So we're talking about 15 years ago here. Actually, it's probably longer now, isn't it? Anyways, she said to me, I've got nothing against gays and lesbians, just so long as they don't live next door to me. Yeah, very, very much a liberal view. Not. I mean, when I confronted her about this, she said, I'm not a liberal all the time. And I went, what are you? Part-time member of the BNP? Anyways. So... Labour are in trouble. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Labour are in fucking trouble. People are leaving the party in their droves. So basically, they're losing party membership fees. Let us remember, Jeremy Corbyn attracted over 300,000 new people to join the Labour Party. At one point, the Labour Party had over 600,000 members. Okay? Oh, by the way, back to the previous story. I actually warned, because I remember some of those trans people I mentioned who have formed this new group. They were all down on. Most of them were down on Jeremy Corbyn. They didn't like him, right? Well, Jeremy Corbyn, right, in his first year said more in support of trans people, particularly as I got him to do so. Yes, that's right. I got him to send a message of solidarity out on Trans Day of Remembrance, which they all moaned about, by the way. They really didn't like Jeremy Corbyn, yet he spoke up more for trans people in the first year than Keir Starmer fucking has. Also, to do with Emily Brothers, one thing I never understood with her, and she knew this full well, was that Jeremy Corbyn spoke up for disabled people more than any other Labour leader. And as someone who's also, disabled themselves, I've got various disabilities, including cerebral palsy. And obviously I'm also autistic. So, huge hole widening in Labour's finances. As I said, obviously the subs have gone down. Also, unions are, the affiliated unions are decreasing their contributions. Notably Unite, which of course is my union and the biggest union in the country. Len McCluskey is not happy with Keir Starmer, which is all resulting now in that Keir Starmer is scrabbling around for big donors, and that is not good news, because that means that Labour is going to be beholden to money from big business, essentially, when big business realises the Tories are a lost cause. Basically, what I'm saying is this: at some point, people will get bored with the Tories and they'll start going to Labour, right? So basically, big business will trump the, basically start, backing Labour, and we all know how this works, We all remember the, Labour under Blair and Bernie Ecclestone and his, donation to the Labour Party when, and somehow Formula One was exempt from the tobacco sponsorship ban, etc., etc., etc. So was it that guy David Abrams? He had stopped giving money to the Labour Party, but now Keir Starmer's managed to attract him back. But the guy has a fucking history of saying really racist shit. Is this really the kind of person we want? Also, the guy who just stepped down as the Scottish Labour leader, basically some of the donors to the Labour Party said they wanted him out. So is Keir Starmer now being, is his policy being dictated by donations? Yeah. The Labour Party is meant to represent the working classes here. Can I remember? It was the Labour Representative Party. Remember back in the day? It is the party of the unions. The party represents the workers. Not the party which represents big fucking business. Okay. I'm just despairing. I mean, a lot of people are now saying that Labour are in a death spiral. I've even heard some people, get very Alex Jones and say, "Oh well, Labour, that Keir Starmer has been put in charge to destroy the Labour Party." Well, he is doing a good to deliberately destroy the Labour Party. Well, he is doing a fucking good job of it. I do think that the Labour Party are in a death spiral. Look, This is a recent opinion poll. Now, I know some people shouldn't read too much into opinion polls, but here's the thing, right? The Tories' mismanagement of COVID, you kind of think that would make them really unpopular, right? So why is it they still ahead in the polls? And I kind of think it's because Labour are so fucking woeful. You know, Spitting Image made up that Keir Starmer was, they did all that sketch about Foxman and that he basically went out at night and basically bored criminals to death with citing the law at them. No, and of course Boris Johnson is called him Captain Hindsight. No, Keir Starmer is Captain Clueless. He, just because he was a renowned human rights lawyer, just because he had, he was a great barrister, doesn't mean he's a good politician. Okay? I mean, I would say this for Ed Miliband, right? He's a nice guy, right? But I didn't think he was a good leader, right? Okay? I think that, there's a rumour going around that if Labour don't do well at the local elections, and let us just remember, there's also the London mayoral elections coming up, and also obviously the elections to the Scottish Parliament. Now, I don't think Labour is going to do well in the elections to the Scottish Parliament, simply because I just think that the SNP are just too popular at the moment up north of the border, and there is certainly a move towards Scottish independence, and I do support that move. But anyways, the local elections and the London mayoral election. Is there also a mayoral election in Manchester? I can't remember. But anyways, if Labour don't do well at those, that there might be moves to oust Starmer. I kind of think, yeah. And it's not like I'm saying bring back Jeremy Corbyn, okay? But what I am saying, right, is there are other candidates I think who could do a better job from the right. If you want people from the right of the party to lead the party, people such as Lisa Nandy, I think Lisa Nandy would do a far better job. Plus also, she's for all the political flaws, she's a steadfast trans ally. In fact, there is a video we might go into some other time, where there's a TERF called Julia Long, who went to one of Lisa Nandy's leadership rallies, basically, tried to catch her out, ambush her, whatever, and Lisa Nandy got the better of her. So, I like Lisa, for the simple fact that she does stick up for trans people. Right, yes. You see, this is the other thing. There was some research done that showed that people seem to think that Marcus Radford and also Piers Morgan, yes, Piers, I spit my dummy out every time Greggs launch a new vegan product. Morgan, are doing a better job at holding the government to account than Keir Starmer. I would certainly agree. I would certainly agree. Piers Morgan, I'm not a fan of, but he has done a really bang-up job in trying to hold the Tories to account. And Marcus Radford, calling them out for, the policy on school meals. I kind of think that Starmer is, as I said, Captain fucking useless. He needs to go. Okay, I'm just going to say that. Yes. All right. So, how do I know? Yeah. Right. I need to just. Right. So, we all know about the accusations of anti-Semitism against his brother, Jeremy. And there's me with Jeremy Corbyn. I would not stand next to Jeremy Corbyn if I thought he was an anti-Semite. But I know that, Piers Corbyn's lunacy, his David Icke type lunacy is going to be used against Jeremy Corbyn. This is comparing, the vaccine program to Auschwitz. That's anti-Semitism. I can't. There's no other way to describe it. All I'll say is this, right? You always have one embarrassing relative in the family. I actually remember. I'm old enough to sort of remember this. Jimmy Carter's brother, Billy Carter. He was somewhat of a drunken embarrassment, if I remember rightly. And there was some story about him urinating on a runway one time because he couldn't get a private jet or something or other. And Jeremy Corbyn is not Piers Corbyn's keeper. They live separate lives. He's not his brother's keeper or whatever the saying is. And of course, this is not the first time he's been arrested. He's an anti-mask, as I say. He's really, he buys in all the David Icke anti-Semitic bullshit. I can't describe him as anything other. Okay, but I will say this: I don't believe Jeremy Corbyn, his brother, and the former leader of the Labour Party, is an anti-Semite. I would not have stood there next to him and had my photo taken. I would not have supported him as hard as I have supported him over the years if I thought he was an anti-Semite. Believe me, people know me. I will call out anti-Semitism if I see it. Yeah. Right. Before we move on, just check in with the chat. Transgenderism and friend to believing our existence is I don't even know. I will wake up eventually. Dara Jones, this will change one day. Yeah, let's hope. Alexandra, Keir Starmer is basically a Tory. Yes, red Tory. I would definitely agree with that one. I disagree. Starmer isn't a Tory. He is, however, a Blairite. Well, red Tory basically means Blairite. It's basically Labour in only but name. Nandi was my second after Long Bailey. Yeah, obviously Long Bailey was seen as the successor to Corbyn's natural successor. And can I just say, no, she's not anti-Semitic either. You can't expect Maxine Peake to... Maxine Peake is not a fucking academic, is she, on, the Israeli-Palestine conflict. So, she probably read something somewhere and, whatever. Neither Maxine Peake or Rebecca Long Bailey, I believe her to be anti-Semitic, and I am so, whatever. Fair, admittedly, I'm an American, so naturally I misunderstand politics of other countries. I remember a Canadian friend of mine said that. He said, even Canadians who are really bad at geography know there's two countries. Right. So, this is flown under the mainstream news media. The main... I'm just going to take a puff a minute. So I'm having a few too many brain farts. I mean, as I say, brain farts are generally compulsory with this stream, but too many and it gets too intoxicating. Anyways, right. Okay. First of all, let me explain the setup in Labour. There are two Jewish groups in Labour. There's the Jewish Labour movement, which is the establishment Jewish group in Labour. They're pro-Israel. Some people would say pro-Zionist. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. some people say they have links with the they actually have hard links with the Israeli government. I don't know about that, and that could actually be an anti-Semitic trope, so I'm not going to go there. The other group is Jewish Voice for Labour, who were like the trans group, which have just split from LGBT plus Labour. Jewish Voice for Labour split from the Jewish Labour movement because the Jewish Labour movement refused to back Jeremy Corbyn in any way, in any fashion. And let's remember that the Jewish Labour movement refused to endorse people voting Labour at the 2019 general election. And I can't help thinking why disciplinary action wasn't taken against them, because there is a bylaw in the Labour party membership regulations which stipulates that if you suggest to people not to vote for Labour or vote for another party, that's an expellable offence. Anyways, Jewish Voice for Labour were formed by those Jews who did support Jeremy Corbyn, who felt that anti-Semitism, the whole issue of anti-Semitism, had been weaponised against him to undermine him. And basically what is happening now is that the Jewish Labour movement have been egging on the leadership to expel members of Jewish Voice for Labour from the party. So Jewish Voice for Labour have now launched a legal challenge to this. Okay, so here's the thing, right? The Jewish community is actually quite diverse. And one thing I know about us Jews is we're an argumentative bunch, okay? Which I say is a good thing. A lot of Jews are strong-minded people from, and that is a good thing, okay? So why can't, the Jewish Labour movement accept there are other Jews who disagree with their position, okay? Right? I'm not saying, if they want to support, the current Israeli government, fine, okay? I think they're wrong because I think Netanyahu has committed human rights violations after human rights violations against the Palestinians. Okay? But if people want to do that, fine. But people also have the right to oppose that. There is not one homogenized Jewish voice on this issue. Okay? Now, one of the people who has... right, before I get to that. So, but one of my complaints about the Jewish Labour movement is, well, just watch this. This is one of the people who has been involved at the high echelons of that organisation.
News had broken of Ella's former job at the Israeli embassy, which had not been widely known. She's in tears because of what she considers anti-Semitic harassment.
You're right.
It's been a tough week. Tough week.
Sorry to hear that.
It's all right. Essentially, Electronic Intifada released that I worked at the embassy before JLM. And Jackie...
Right, I should explain. Electric Intifada are a pro-Palestinian news site. They're the ones who unearthed basically found out they were the ones who broke the story about Keir Starmer hiring a former Israeli intelligence officer to run Labour's social media, and there are numerous accusations of anti-Semitism, of course, against Intifada for basically sticking up for human fucking rights. Also, the person she names there, Jackie Walker, you can find an interview on my channel with Jackie. We do actually go into some of what's which you're about to see.
Jackie Walker's been slamming me online all week, and I just had to stand in front of her. It was really hard. It was really hard. It's over. I'm gonna go run a rally, so you. You. The anti-Semite lot of them.
Oh my God.
When our undercover reporter next met Ella, she had regained her composure.
I saw Jackie Walker on Saturday and thought, you know what, I can take her. She's like 5'2" and tiny. That's why I can take Jackie Walker. Krav Maga training.
Right, I should tell people what Krav Maga is. Krav Maga is a hand-to-hand martial arts thingy which is taught to members of the Israeli Defense Force. Essentially, Ella Rose is threatening Jackie Walker with violence. This is when Jackie Walker was a member of the Labour Party, can I just add, and Ella was also a member of the Labour Party. People have been expelled for less, such as Jackie Walker. I mean, Jackie Walker should not have been expelled, period. She did nothing wrong. She made one fucking typo and asked a question which, nobody wanted to hear. But, people needed to hear. And other people were asking, as I said, I've been into with this with Jackie. Go and check out the interview we did together. But here's the deal, right? She is actually threatening Ella Rose here is threatening another Labour member with violence, and she faced 0 disciplinary action for it. I mean, Jackie Walker did make a complaint. Yeah. The Jewish Labour, these are the kind of people who have been involved with the Jewish Labour movement. Yet they seem to think that those left-wing Jews who are involved with the Jewish Voice for Labour, are the bad ones. I've never heard anyone from Jewish Voice for Labour threatening anyone else with violence. It's not on. And Ella Rose should not be in the Labour Party. She also, the thing is, right, after this, there was a Panorama documentary, which, about, it was the edition, is the Labour Party anti-Semitic? Now, I'm not denying that there wasn't legitimate complaints of anti-Semitism from Jewish members expressed in that documentary. However, Ella Rose featured, and this was after this happened, and the BBC did not make any mention of this. Okay, this is fucking out of fucking order, and yet the mainstream news media, I guess you could say Al Jazeera is, well, not really, but the mainstream news media hasn't taken a fucking bit of notice of this. I'm absolutely disgusted. Yeah, now we need to go on to this is the co-chair. Sorry, I don't know if she's still the co-chair, but she's the co-founder of Jewish Voice for Labour. And this video was put up, when was it put up? Yeah, November. It's a really good video, and well, let's take a look.
The wrong sort of Jew, self-hating Jew. I was called that for the first time when I was 19 years old at university, where I made a speech in defence of a pro-Palestinian motion, and it was in the Jewish Telegraph, and they front-paged it. This self-hating Jew, she must hate herself when she looks in the mirror. I was 19 years old. I've had people phone me up and say, we're going to put you in a wheelchair, we know where you are, we're outside your door. Probably the worst incident was when I was with my sister at a meeting about anti-Semitism with all Jews on the panel, and people were shouting at us, capos, capos.
You're called traitors.
Right, I should explain what capo is. Oh, actually, she does. So.
Capos.
Capo was a Jewish inmate of a concentration camp who collaborated with the authorities. We're talking people who collaborated in annihilation of their own people. So it's a pretty bad thing to be called. And it's Jews calling other Jews. Not nice. As a Jew on the left, who is intensely anti-racist and intensely aware of what anti-Semitism is and how dangerous it is, to be called an anti-Semite oneself is about as low as it gets. It's a bit like being accused of paedophilia or something. I cannot really think of anything worse. And it undermines the fight against real anti-Semitism. This is one of the most frightening things for me.
Can I just point out, that's real anti-Semitism. That's from Charlottesville, okay? That was real anti-Semitism. And all those marching were, of course, Trump supporters.
People have been weaponising accusations of anti-Semitism for political ends. The fact that that is going on seriously undermines and endangers our chances of dealing with genuine anti-Semitism, which is a real threat in our society. One of the biggest problems we face is the treatment of our...
Yeah, she said what I've said all along, that the weaponisation of anti-Semitism to undermine Jeremy Corbyn has actually in itself undermined, you know, real concern, legitimate concerns of about anti-Semitism. Because what happens is people will just go, yeah, right, you know? That's the danger. And believe me, there is plenty of anti-Semitism. Next week, one of the shows when Ozma's available, we're going to do is there is a really anti-Semitic video about COVID-19 still posted on YouTube, and we're going to go through it. So, you know, I'm fully aware that there is, you know, a great deal of anti-Semitism out there. And that's why the danger of, you know, weaponising it to undermine Jeremy Corbyn just because you don't like him for being a socialist is so dangerous.
Our community as if it was just one monolithic block. This is the typical trope of all forms of racism. The Jewish community is not one undifferentiated thing. Its opinions vary, just like every other section of the community. And we find it deeply disturbing that the whole community is treated as one. A lot of us are anti-Zionist, and people need to realise that going back generations, Zionism was not the creed followed by all Jews. Far from it. Marek Edelman, leader of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in 1943, said that Jews should always be with the oppressed and never with the oppressor. I mean, for a section of the population whose history, much that's magical and wonderful, but so much that is to do with persecution, the fact that people with that history should identify with the oppressed in every setting seems self-evident to us. And that's where our support for justice for Palestinians comes in. We are identifying with the oppressed. And for anybody to suggest that it is the Israeli state which represents the oppressed in that conflict is pretty short-sighted and misguided.
Stop all arms trade with Israel now!
Jeremy Corbyn was the reason that more than 300,000 new people flocked into the Labour Party at the end of 2015 and soon after. To have somebody leading that party who was in solidarity with the oppressed against the oppressor consistently throughout his 30-plus...
That's him protesting apartheid, obviously. Something I did myself. And you know, sometimes I am very ashamed to be a white South African, considering our history. It's, you know, and I felt I needed to go. I bunk off school to basically redeem myself. You know, and my family were hard and well. Here's the thing. People have often asked me about Jews in South Africa. Let's just say that the apartheid regime tolerated us. So in some ways, my family they sort of supported the apartheid regime, possibly because they felt that if they didn't, they were going to get persecuted. But then again, my family, considering my other attitudes of my family, I kind of just think they would have anyways. This is the dichotomy of Orthodox Jews, unfortunately. Sometimes, you know, that basically they're uber conservative, yet, you know, which mean, and if you're uber conservative, you tend to want to repress other minorities, yet, you know, such as LGBTQ people. I mean, Orthodox Judaism is just as bad towards the LGBTQ community as it is towards just as the Christian fundamentalists are towards the LGBTQ community, and obviously, radical Islam is towards the LGBT community. But the thing, the dichotomy, the thing which always, I never got is how Jews who had lived through the Holocaust, had lived through the Second World War, could support a regime in South Africa which was treating the indigenous population there like shit. I really... Anyways.
Years as a Member of Parliament was just such a breath of fresh air. Somebody who clearly wanted to transform society, who really wanted to tackle privilege and inequality in society. It was a hopeful time for all of us, and it was a project that we thought worth fighting for. And it needed defending because all those people who have a vested interest in putting a negative to everything positive that Jeremy said and did, they were mobilising against him and what he represented. One of the most ludicrous allegations against Jeremy Corbyn was that he exhibited anti-Semitism in chairing a meeting in 2010 in Portcullis House, where the main speaker was a Holocaust survivor from the Netherlands called Hayo Meyer. I was at that meeting, and what Hayo did was to put on a screen comparisons between the treatment of Palestinians in the occupied territories and the treatment of Jews in areas occupied by the Nazis. And there were uncanny and very unnerving similarities between the way these two communities were treated by the occupying powers in each case.
I saw in Auschwitz that if a dominant group wants to dehumanize others, so as the Nazis wanted to dehumanize me, these dominant group must first be dehumanized in a way themselves by diminishing their empathy due to propaganda and indoctrination in order to be able to be as cruel as some were. Okay, but the same holds nowadays for Israel.
The most shocking thing to me is the portrayal of that meeting as somehow despicable because we saw a Holocaust survivor comparing his experiences with what he could see happening to Palestinians. What was horrifying about that meeting was that there were a bunch of really intolerant, bigoted, aggressive, bullying, pro-Israel campaigners in that room who shouted Hayo down. It went on for a long time, and lots of us in the audience was sort of saying to Jeremy, can you please call the authorities to get these people out? They are harassing and intimidating an 80-plus-year-old Holocaust survivor. The meeting was pretty well destroyed by them, to be honest. Eventually, the authorities did have to be called. It was, by the way, a Holocaust memorial event, which was commemorating other forms of oppression.
Yeah, this is typical of Uber Zionists. They will bully and intimidate. Something else. There is a channel on YouTube, which we'll get into next week, who are just a bunch of trolls, basically going after low-hanging fruit to prove their point that various sections of the left are anti-Semitic. Let me tell you something. Most anti-Semitism still comes from the right. I'm not denying there isn't anti-Semitism on the left. Please don't think I am, because as I've said previously, I've experienced it myself on the left. But most of the anti-Semitism I've experienced comes from the right. And I'm sure, if Alex is still in chat, she'd back me up on that one.
As well. So there were speakers from traveller communities, for example, who we hardly got to hear because Hayo Meyer was interrupted so often by...
Yeah, now, talking about the traveller community, the gypsy community, you see, one of the things Zionists think is an anti-Semitic trope is when you say, though more Jews overall were killed during the Holocaust, which is overwhelmingly more Jews were killed, a higher percentage of the gypsy population was killed. So essentially, less gypsies were killed by the Nazis, but as a percentage of their community, more were killed than Jews. Okay, if you get that figure. Okay. No, you know, the Nazis basically just killed anyone they didn't like the look of, and I always would remind people of the Martin Niemer poem "First They Came." Onwards.
These vociferous hecklers. It was intimidating. It really was, to be there. I remember it vividly.
Any criticism on the policies of Israel is hampered and made impossible by a terrible trick and crime of Israeli propaganda, that any criticism on the politics of Israel comes out is induced by anti-Semitic feelings.
It's really important that we don't forget to talk about freedom of speech. We are being no platformed, we are being cancelled, we are being denied.
Right. Okay. It is, and this is an important point to make, it is the democratic right of any citizen to criticise those who govern over us. Okay? You know, it is not racist to criticise any government. It is not racist to criticise the British government, so therefore why is it racist to criticise the Israeli government? Now, I should go into the International Holocaust Memorial Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. Stipulates that criticism of the Israeli state, right, is anti-Semitic. But criticism of the Israeli government obviously isn't. They agree with that. Okay. Now, personally, I'm talking personally, I believe anti-Semitism just to be hatred of Jews for being Jewish. Okay. But while we're on the while we're talking about this, the problem I have with there's a whole load of definitions they give, which we will go through in a future video. Is that people use state and government as interchangeable terms, right? So someone who will attack the Israeli state when they mean government will be slammed as an anti-Semite, okay? And I think that's a little unfair, okay? This is why when I criticise anything, any persecution of the Palestinians, I always say Israeli government, right? I'm always careful. I always say Israeli government, okay? And I would advise anyone always to use that term. I mean, I'll admit, I've had this discussion with Ari de Meslo, who's a libertarian, and of course, libertarians will always say that state and government are intertwined. Therefore, and they don't care if they get called anti-Semites for basically criticising the Israeli state, But I don't. I personally will always just say the Israeli government, because for one thing, I do support there being an Israeli state, okay? But I do believe you can change the government of the Israeli state. That, things could get far, it doesn't look it at the moment, but who knows? Within time, maybe there will be a government in Israel which, treats the Palestinians with a great deal more respect. One hopes.
The freedom to express legitimate points of view. People who claim to care about civil liberties, human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press and so on. All those people should be up in arms about what's been happening to Jeremy Corbyn and his associates in the Labour Party. So far they're silent. There are so many people who have just ceased to care about truth and facts. This is very hard to counter when the mainstream media themselves do not show respect for actual truth and actual facts in some cases. The media has totally sidelined and ignored left-wing Jews. Not only left-wing Jews, eminent Jewish scholars who have written extensively on the subject of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and demonstrated that the definition that is being pushed to define what is anti-Semitic.
Ozma, do you want to come on the stream? I can send you the Zoom link on Twitter. Do you want to come on? Say so in chat, and I'll send you the Zoom link. All right. Well, let us know. All right.
Is untrustworthy, faulty, actually dangerous, because it conflates being Jewish with being a supporter of Israel, being Jewish with being a Zionist. One of the most important Jewish academics who has spoken on this and been ignored is actually the American academic Kenneth Stern, who wrote the original document upon which the IHRA definition is based. And he has said on a number of occasions, in writing, in letters to Congress in the States, I abhor the way this definition that I drafted to assist data collection is being used to suppress free speech.
That was not the purpose that it was designed for.
I abhor the way it is being deployed in universities to prevent people who have a certain view about Palestine and Israel from expressing it.
There should be no question that Israel and Palestine, as contentious as that is, should be an ideal subject for getting students to think about how do you deal with the competing narratives and competing histories, how do you look at identity, how do you look at the equities and so forth, rather than just feed them into, if something said about Israel that's anti-Zionist, that's anti-Semitism, that ends the matter. It should be the beginning of the questions, not the end of it.
Anthony Lerman, former director of the Institute for Jewish Policy Research, has written extensively on this subject. Do you ever hear of these people being called to be interviewed on any mainstream organisation? Never. And all the work that they've done is completely ignored.
As a college professor, I'm also concerned about Jews that are anti-Zionist, and they're left out in the cold here and in fact made targets. We have websites that go and hunt them and put dossiers on there. I think this will only encourage...
Don't I fucking know it?
That type of activity.
You can have an organisation like the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, which was one of the instigators of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission report into Labour Party's handling of complaints about anti-Semitism, quoted over and over again as if it were a leading authority, whereas in fact it was created in 2014 during the Gaza conflict. And these people are quoted over again. Type Campaign Against Anti-Semitism into Google and you will get innumerable media references. Type in Anthony Lerman or Kenneth Stern and you'll get a few learned dissertations here and there and virtually nothing in mainstream media. We look back at the history of oppression and pogroms that my grandparents had to flee, came to this country, settling into a host community where you know that you are not treated as equal, or you're treated as weird and odd and you have a funny accent. Just to become part of that and to join in the resistance against fascist movements, Cable Street, trade unionism. So many Jews were active in the trade union movement, still are. So many Jews were active, going back to South Africa again, who supported the ANC. Looking at the civil rights movement in America, where so many Jews were on the front line. So that is our tradition. That's why we've adopted that slogan about being with the oppressed and never with the oppressor. Because there are great Jewish traditions that we should be hanging on to, not this lining up with the establishments, helping to destroy a movement for justice and peace and decency.
Funny thing bringing up American history, of course, if you listen to last night's show, Ozma brought up the fact that Ben Shapiro, who is a well-known right-wing Jewish commentator, supports the ICE detention camps. That's where... immigrants from Mexico, supposed illegal immigrants. You see, the thing is, crossing a border is... crossing a line on a map is supposedly illegal. I never got that one. But anyways, so basically what supposedly is illegal immigrants are being thrown into detention camps on the border with Mexico, and essentially they're concentration camps, and Ben Shapiro supports them. Hasn't he learned anything from fucking history? I mean, Ozma detailed the kind of conditions, that there are in these camps, which are fucking atrocious. Yeah. Now, Naomi Winborn Idrissi, she really is a lovely woman, but guess what's happened to her? Yep, she's been suspended from the Labour Party. Basically, here we are. This is actually from the Jewish Voice for Labour website. There were other news reports, but they were always biased, funny enough, against Jewish Voice for Labour, and Naomi. Members of Chinkford and Wood Green CLP have made a statement explaining what happened at a general meeting on November the 30th, expressing their solidarity with suspended officers. Leaks to hostile media generated inaccurate reports, which were the prelude to the suspension from the Labour Party membership of constituency chair Gary Leverley and vice chair Naomi Winborn Idrissi. In expressing their solidarity, GM members join the growing wave of resistance to the party leadership's increasing authoritarianism. A CLP secretary, okay, to cut the long story short, I could read all this, but basically, Naomi and Gary want to basically put up a resolution opposing the suspension of Jeremy Corbyn from the Labour Party. If you remember, Jeremy Corbyn was suspended from the Labour Party, but then was reinstated. He still has had the whip, the parliamentary whip. It hasn't been given back. So technically, Corbyn still sits as an independent MP, and to be honest, I can't see him ever getting back into the Labour parliamentary party. So just for objecting to his suspension, they were suspended. That's essentially what happened. Yeah. It's really sad what is happening. It just seems to be that if you're the wrong kind of Jew, you're being shown the door of the Labour Party, and that in itself is, well, anti-Semitism. Okay. Yeah, talking of anti-Semites, yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, she's had been ousted from various committee. Yes, here we are. The U.S. House of Representatives has voted to expel a Republican congressman from two committees over incendiary remarks she made before being elected last November. Marjorie Taylor Greene had promoted. I think I mentioned some of this last night. I think one of those committees is the Education Committee. I mean, it's kind of worrying her being on the Education Committee. I mean, she had elbows. She'd be teaching, kids that the moon landings were a hoax, and dinosaur fossils aren't real. Yeah. Anyways, to try and save her own skin, she gave somewhat of an apology. However, most people have judged this not to be an apology, more speaking out of both sides of her mouth. So I thought we'll go through it for a laugh. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a listen.
Madam Speaker, my Democrat colleagues, Republican colleagues, my district back home in Georgia 14, to the American people, to my mom and dad, and my husband and my children. I've been here for 1 month and a day, And I've gotten to know part of my conference, my Republican colleagues, but not even all of them yet.
Well, okay, first of all, I would imagine there might be one or two. I mean, look, we know that, the GOP, has descended into being batshit crazy. But there might be one or two Republican congressmen and women who are more moderate, more sensible, possibly. One would hope.
I haven't gotten to know any of my Democrat colleagues.
Oh, I wonder fucking why. You go around saying that they should be assassinated, and that some of them, such as Ilhan Omar, should not be in Congress because they're not Christians.
And I haven't had to have any conversations with any of you to tell you who I am and what I'm about. You only know me by how Media Matters, CNN, MSNBC, and the rest of the mainstream media is portraying me.
We know you from all the shit you've said. It's all over fucking social fucking media. Stop blaming the mainstream media. You've said the batshit crazy stuff about space lasers and about the great fucking replacement, and Parkland's was a hoax, and that you chased fucking David Hogg, a survivor of the Parkland shooting, down the fucking street. We've seen it all. You put it up there on the fucking social media your fucking self.
What you don't know about me is that I'm a very proud wife of almost 25 years, that I'm a mother of 3 children, and I consider being a mother the greatest blessing of my life.
I feel sorry for the kids. I think Child Protection Services should probably be investigating her.
And the greatest thing that I'll ever achieve. I'm proudly the first person to graduate college in my family.
She graduated college? What was that? The University of Dumbass and Batshit Crazy? Was it Trump University?
Family, making my parents very happy and proud. I'm also a very successful business owner. We've grown our company from 1 state to 11.
Yeah, Trump thinks he's a successful business owner, but he's bankrupt, technically.
11 states. I'm a very hard worker. I've always paid my taxes. I've never been arrested. I've never done drugs, but I've gotten a few.
Maybe if you'd done drugs, you would have learnt to be more tolerant. I remember Lemmy's Lemmy, the former, sadly no longer with us, frontman of Motorhead, once, I remember in an interview he said that taking LSD taught him to be tolerant because it taught him that there are other realities. And I also remember Steve Jobs saying that an important part of his enlightenment was dropping acid. Yeah, drugs are not bad. If you think drugs are bad, I'm going to tell you the Bill Hicks line. Go home and burn all your records, because the musicians who made that music were real high on fucking drugs.
Few speeding tickets in my day. What you need to know about me is I'm a very regular American, just like the people I represent in my district and most people across.
She thinks she's a regular American. Right.
The country. I never ever considered to run for Congress or even get involved in politics. As a matter of fact, I wasn't a political person until I found a candidate that I really liked, and his name is Donald J. Trump, when he ran for president. To me, he was someone I could relate to, someone...
So somebody who has been accused of rape numerous times, somebody whose best friend was Jeffrey Epstein, a serial child abuser, someone who is essentially a tax dodger and a con man, is your hero. Yeah, that says a lot about you.
And that I enjoyed his plain talk, not the offensive things, but just the way he talked normally. And I thought, finally, maybe this is someone that will do something about the things that deeply bother me like the fact that we're so deeply in debt that our country has murdered over 62 million people in the womb.
The country's in debt. This is... Okay, I'm just going to have a bit of a bitch here. Essentially, when the Democrats are in charge of the US government, the Republicans suddenly become deficit hawks. Oh, we've got to take care of the deficit. We've got to take care of the deficit. Yet, when the Republicans are in charge of government, they run up the deficit more than the Democrats do. In fact, you know, when Bill Clinton left the White House, the US, there was a surplus. Yet Bush gets into power, 2 wars and a financial crisis later, and America was on its knees with trillions of dollars in a deficit. So the Republicans are so fucking hypocritical here. And of course she's now going on about, you know, being an anti-abortion. It's really sad when you have women not sticking up for the reproduction rights of women. I mean, it's doubly offensive, personally, to me, when you have men doing it, as if they know what, you know, it's like to bear a child. You know? And here's the thing to all anti-abortionists, right? If you are so concerned about protecting the sanctity of life, why don't you know, adopt a child who could have, to prevent it from being aborted? You know, the thing is, I don't think abortions are great things. You know, I'm not one. You don't hear me saying, roll up, get your free abortion, okay? But I do think they should be, I do think women have the right to have an abortion, particularly if they can't afford to bring up that child. You know, what sort of life that child's going to have? As I said, you know, and also maybe some women aren't capable of bringing up children for numerous fucking reasons. You know, and you know, you've got to think about the quality of life that child you wouldn't have. You know, as I said, if these anti-abortion activists are so fucking concerned about protecting, fucking adopt fucking children, but you don't, do you? No. You're fucking hypocrites.
The fact that our borders are open and some of my friends have had their children.
Your borders are open. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry, there are fucking concentration camps along the fucking border where supposed illegal immigrants are being thrown into, you know, atrocious fucking conditions. Mothers are being separated from their children. I thought you would care about that, being a mother.
Children murdered by illegal aliens. Or perhaps that maybe we can stop sending our sons and daughters to fight in foreign wars and be used as the world's police base.
Okay, that's the one bit I kind of agree with, funny enough. Yeah, I do think that, you know, American military imperialism is, you know, a bad thing.
Basically. Or maybe that our government would stand up for our American businesses and our American jobs and make the American people and the American taxpayers their focus.
Hold on, didn't Trump give a lot of rich people a tax cut? Yeah.
These are the things that I care about deeply. So when we elected President Trump, and then I started seeing things in the news that didn't make sense to me, like Russian collusion, which are conspiracy theories also, and have been proven so. These things bothered me deeply, and I realized just watching CNN or Fox News, I may not find the truth. And so what I did is I started looking up things on the internet, asking questions.
She started reading InfoWars, in other words.
Like most people do every day. Use Google. And I stumbled across something, and this was at the end of 20...
Actually, this is a good point to make. So, one of the reasons I'm so glad that Alex Jones was actually banned and InfoWars were banned from YouTube was back in the day when I was writing blog pieces and I needed to find, news media, reports on various things, so I could link to them to use as some proof to what I was saying. Within 3 videos, you would come across an InfoWars video. Right? That was the YouTube algorithm, I guess. And so, she's basically saying, she types into Google, obviously she's going to come across people like, if you put in certain keywords, you're going to come across InfoWars, Breitbart, you're going to get conspiracy websites, David Icke, and whatever the fuck else.
2017 called QAnon. Well, these posts were mainly about this Russian collusion information. A lot of it was some of what I would see on the news at night, and I got very interested in it. So I posted about it on Facebook, I read about it, I talked about it, I asked questions about it, and then more information came from it. But you see, here's the problem. Throughout 2018, because I was upset about things and didn't trust the government really, because the people here weren't doing the things that I thought they should be doing for us, the things that I just told you I cared about. And I want you to know, a lot of Americans don't trust our government, and that's sad. The problem with that is, though, is I was allowed to believe things that weren't true.
No, you decided to believe in this shit, okay? Stop blaming it. Fucking, what is it with the right wing always talks about individual responsibility, yet anytime they fuck up, they don't take responsibility.
And I would ask questions about them and talk about them. And that is absolutely what I regret. Because if it weren't for the Facebook post and comments that I liked in 2018.
I mean, okay, fair enough. I've got to, I'm always been reminded by Jane Fay, but I've got to remember that not everybody's intelligent as myself, right? So they can't decipher between what's true and what's bullshit, right? It's pretty obvious that Marjorie Taylor Greene is not the brightest spark in the bunch, okay? So maybe I should be a little bit more sympathetic. But then again, she thinks that I've got access to a secret space laser.
I wouldn't be standing here today and you couldn't point a finger and accuse me of anything wrong, because I've lived a very good life that I'm proud of, my family's proud of, my husband's proud of, my children are proud of, and that's what my district elected me for. So later in 2018, when I started finding misinformation, lies, things that were not true in these QAnon posts, I stopped believing it. And I want to tell you, Can
I just remind people, the whole QAnon conspiracy theory emulated from some 4chan type forum, right? So basically an internet troll wrote that Donald Trump is here to save us all from satanic pedophiles, blah-de-blah-de-blah, which is, of course, bullshit, considering some of the company he has kept. This is the problem with, this is the problem with, it's a problem with stupid people.
Source, and I say this to everyone, any source of information that is a mix of truth and a mix of lies is dangerous, no matter what it is saying, what party it is helping, anything or any country it's about. It's dangerous. And these are the things that happen on the left and the right.
There again. Here we go. Oh, the left are just as responsible as the right. They're fucking... How many more people have died due to far-right political violence? Far more than left-wing political violence, okay? Far more.
And it is a true problem in our country. So I walked away from those things, and I decided I'm going to do what I've done all my life. I'm going to work hard and try to solve the problems that I'm upset about. So I started getting involved in politics. You see, school shootings are absolutely real.
School shootings are absolutely real. Well, you said that the Parkland shooting was a hoax and chased David Hogg, as I've already explained, down the street saying it was a hoax. Yeah, David Hogg is a survivor of the Parkland shooting.
And every child that is lost, those families mourn it. I understand how terrible it is because when I was 16 years old in 11th grade, my school was a gun-free school zone, and one of my schoolmates brought guns to school and took our entire school hostage.
Right, so you should know better than to fucking traumatize David Hogg, who's already been through a horrific fucking experience. You really don't have any fucking empathy or compassion for your fellow human, do you? No, you don't. You're basically a narcissistic cunt.
And that happened right down the hall from my classroom. I know the fear that David Hogg had that day. I know the fear that these kids had.
Again, then why did you chase him down the fucking street saying Parkland's was a hoax and that he was a puppet of George Soros?
And this is why, and I say this sincerely with all my heart, because I love our kids, every single one of your children, all of our children. I truly believe that children at school should never be left unprotected. I believe they should be just as protected as we were with 30,000 National Guardsmen. Our children are our future, and they're our most precious resource. I also want to tell you 9/11 absolutely happened. I remember that day crying all day long watching it on the news. And it's a tragedy for anyone to say it didn't happen.
Yeah, but I bet you think that the Jews are the ones actually responsible for it. Believe it or not, that whole conspiracy about it was actually Mossad behind the 9/11 attacks. Do you know when I heard that? First of all, 2 hours after the event. I am not kidding. Yeah, you know, they will. Is there anything they won't blame us on, us Jews?
And so that I definitely want to tell you, I do not believe that it's fake. I also want to tell you that we've got to do better. You see, big media companies can take teeny tiny pieces of words that I've said, that you have said.
You've posted this shit yourself. Fuck's sake. The whole conspiracy about there being, a space laser run by George Soros and the Rothschilds. There's a whole fucking Facebook post you made yourself. Stop blaming the fucking media. You did this to yourself.
Any of us and can portray us into someone that we're not. And that is wrong. Cancel culture is a real thing.
No, it's not. It's bullshit. And it's not like, anyone has managed to shut you up, have they? You've been blabbing all over the fucking place. Okay, maybe, MSNBC won't have you on, but I'm sure Newsmax will. In fact, the Newsmax did when you said you were going to, introduce articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. Even before he was in fucking office.
It is very real. And when big tech companies like Twitter, you can scroll through and see where someone may have retweeted porn. This is a problem. This is a terrible, terrible thing. But yet, when I say that I absolutely believe with all my heart that God's creation is He created them male and female, and that should not be denied, when I am censored for saying those type of...
Because that's being transphobic. And to give Twitter their due, they are against they generally, not always, will, suspend and boot people who are transphobic. It doesn't always happen, unfortunately, because TERFs can be kind of manipulative, but in their language, but, generally.
The things, that is wrong. You see, here's the real situation. I decided to run for Congress because I wanted to help our country. I want Americans to have our American dream. I want to protect our freedoms. This is what I ran for Congress on. I never once...
Protecting freedoms. What? Like the freedom for a woman to choose, you know? No, you don't believe in that freedom, do you? Do you believe that people should be free to, you know, smoke marijuana? No. Do you think trans people should be free to live their lives, you know, in peace? No, you don't believe in that freedom, do you? Don't talk to me about fucking freedom.
Said during my entire campaign, QAnon. I never once said any of the things that I am being accused of.
You did. There's documented fucking evidence.
Today, during my campaign, I never said any of these things.
Yes. Well, one thing I can tell you, there are photos of the 3%ers doing security at one of your rallies, and the 3%ers are a neo-Nazi white supremacist group. You can't hide that one. You can't, you know, you can't bury that one.
Since I have been elected for Congress, these were words of the past, and these things do not represent me. They do not represent my district, and they do not represent my values. Here's what I can tell you. I am beyond grateful for this opportunity, and I'll tell you why. I believe in God with all my heart, and I'm so grateful to be humbled, to be reminded that I'm a sinner and that Jesus died on the cross to forgive me for my sins. And this is something that I absolutely rejoice in today to tell you all. And I think it's important for all of us to remember none of us are perfect. None of us are. And none of us can even come close to earning our way into heaven just by our acts and our works. But it's only through the grace of God. And this is why I will tell you, as a member of this Congress, the 117th Congress, I'm a passionate person. I'm a competitor. I'm a fighter. I will work with you for good things for the people of this country. But the things I will not stand for is abortion. I think it's the worst thing this country has ever committed. And if we are to say in God we trust, how do we murder God's creation in the womb? Another thing I will say to this body is I want to work with all of you for our people. It should be America first always. Always. And there's nothing wrong with that.
America first. That's dog whistling to fascists, of course.
And if this Congress is to tolerate members that condone riots that have hurt American people, attack police officers.
See, this is the bit. This is not an apology. You know, basically, she's accusing the Democrats of basically supporting the riots which happened last summer. I can't remember any Democrat saying that they supported those riots. I think there might be Democrats who say they can understand the anger, but I didn't hear any Democrats say they, you know, go ahead, have a riot. No, I don't remember that happening. Sorry.
Officers occupied federal property, burned businesses and cities, but yet wants to condemn me and crucify me in the public square for words that I said and I regret a few years.
She's trying to play the fucking typical fucking far-right snowflake. So, yeah. Anyways, there is I think this is an important point to make. Fake news thing. This is where it leads. Okay. Now, so unfortunately, I can't seem to find the full video of this incident, but essentially what happened, right, is there was some old bloke on a QAnon, on a COVID ward, and his wife, I think it is, and a supposed advocate for him are trying to basically remove him from the COVID ward. Now, this video doesn't explain everything which happens. I'm going to have to fill you in afterwards, but you can see for yourself how disruptive they are towards the doctors who are trying to care for this guy.
If you go home, if you go home, you will die.
Hold on, where's that? Oh, here it is. no. Why isn't that? Don't know why that's not working now. Oh, fuck's sake. Hold on. Let me just refresh the page. Sorry, technical difficulties. Right. So, this is where, you know... Here we are.
If you go home,
we need to.
if you go home, you will die.
You keep saying, I want to go home.
You will die.
Yes, I want to go home.
Right, can you listen before we start making it again hasty? Can you go through with me all of the medication and treatments and what the treatment plan is that you've got for it?
Why would he die if he goes home? Just because he hasn't got the oxygen?
We're giving him 100% oxygen, and his oxygen saturation is 78%.
You could be giving
Normal
me
is 95%
You're
and
not
above.
giving it to me, are you? You stopped giving it to me.
You just took it off and I put it back on, sir.
Yes,
okay.
But I've been sitting here without it ever since.
He has coronavirus pneumonia affecting both of his lungs.
Yeah.
He's on steroids called dexamethasone. He's on antibiotics to treat concurrent bacterial infection. Okay?
Right.
That's the treatment he's on.
And that's it?
To my knowledge, if we get his drug chart, I can tell you what he's on.
Right, okay. I emailed into the hospital about saying that the family wasn't happy with the steroids and the antibiotics and they'd be able to replace it with vitamin C, vitamin D and zinc. Plus there was another one, I forget what the lawyer told me earlier. But,
none of those are proven treatments for coronavirus. However, antibiotics and steroids are.
Sorry?
If you don't leave, that's trespass, mate.
How's it trespass?
Because you're on private ground, that's why, mate.
I'm his friend.
You need to leave, mate. You need to leave, yeah?
Listen, I'm his friend.
Let's go,
it doesn't make any difference. We're putting an application in a court protection for it.
Okay, so I need to... That's not a very good explanation. So I have seen the full video. As I said, unfortunately, I can't find a version of that. Essentially, the guy you hear speaking, saying, you know, I've talked to the lawyers. When the doctor tells him that this guy's the patient he's trying to remove from the ward has COVID, the guy goes, COVID is a hoax, basically. And the actual line he uses, I've heard Alex Jones use. So this guy is obviously somebody who tunes into InfoWars and Alex Jones. The other thing which isn't shown in that video is the guy who's trying to remove him from the ward isn't actually wearing a mask. And I have to ask why it is that East Surrey, why was it he was allowed anywhere near that COVID ward if he doesn't have a mask on? You know, you kind of think that should be the bare fucking minimum. You know, now, and the other thing which is scary is East Surrey is my local hospital. Well, one of them. Okay. So yeah, as it says, hospital incursions by COVID deniers are putting lives at risk. Absolutely, because they buy into the fucking fake news. People like David Icke, people like Alex Jones. And, you know, the result is that people die. Anyways. Right, so, well, after I sign off tonight, I'm going to be kicking back this weekend and watching a bit of rugby. Doesn't matter who wins the Six Nations, of course. I just like to remind them all. Then they're not going to be world champions. I'll remind them who is world champions.
Arms there, pops up for the toy. Here comes Cheslin Colby. Colby bounces towards the fence. Beats one, still going. Cheslin Colby. South Africa.
Yep, South Africa are the world champions. And the thing I remember, that was the last try in the final, and I remember when that was scored. I still get goosebumps watching it because this is World Cup final 2019. I should have said. I was out of my chair on my knees with my hands in the air, and I had tears rolling down my eyes. You know, rugby is a sport I grew up with. You know, very much part of South African culture. I mean, it is our national sport. I'm sure some people might have seen the film Invictus. I was actually out in South Africa when that happened. I didn't go to any of the games, unfortunately. And yeah, I know there's going to be cynics who say, "Oh, what does a sporting event ever do for society?" But it makes people happy. I remember how spirits were lifted during Euro '96 when England did so well, right? I remember the last World Cup. You know, when sorry, I'm talking about football here. When the last football World Cup happened and England got to the semi-finals, I remember the people's spirits lift. Yeah, sure, it didn't cure all the issues in South Africa, but it healed a lot of wounds. I can tell you that. It really did. When South Africa won the Rugby World Cup in 1995, it really did. Okay? So, as I say, it doesn't really matter, which of the, Northern Hemisphere minnows win. South Africa are still Rugby World Champions. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. But the reason I brought this up is because I got a story to tell you to do with trans. Essentially, a few years ago, basically I posted on Facebook that I was into rugby. And all of a sudden, there was a lot of trans people sort of saying, "Well, that's not very feminine." Now, we used to call... I don't know, sorry, I'm having a bit of breath. No, it was before that. No, sorry, there's two stories here. Okay. Deep breath, Sophia. Right. So, back in the day, when we used to have various discussion groups, before sort of the days before Facebook, there is a Facebook story to tell you. But before, we had when we had discussion forums and bulletin boards and stuff, right, specifically for trans stuff. I remember, I just posted up, I like rugby. All of a sudden, I was dogpiled by a bunch of what we would now call true scummers. In those days, the term we used to use, this is so funny, we used to call them Uber trannies, which now would sound like some taxi service for drag queens. But essentially, these were people who sort of seemed to think that you got to determine what trans people looked like and what trans women looked like and what trans people did, and if you stepped out of their standards, then you weren't a real trans woman. And of course, liking rugby, that wasn't seen as being very feminine. Okay? Because of course, women never play rugby, despite the fact that there is actually a parallel, I should have got the website up, parallel women's Six Nations championship. Now, a few years later, during the 2015 Rugby World Cup, when South Africa embarrassingly lost in the pool matches to Japan, of all countries, and believe me, at the beginning of the second half, I could see it coming, and I have a friend who has a Japanese wife, and they couldn't stop rubbing that one in to me. There was another trans woman who unfriended me. And I asked them, why did they unfriend me? And they said, because only Tories like rugby union. Talk about, preconceptions. And I went, well, have you ever heard of Brian Moore, who used to be an England player? Because he's a paid-up member of the Labour Party. And in fact, he's been asked several occasions to stand as a parliamentary prospective candidate. So I get shot on all sides for liking rugby union, despite, from where I'm from, it's our national sport. So anyway, I'll leave you with some predictions as to what will happen in the games. So we have Italy against France. Now this has been played obviously in Italy, and Italy have beaten France a couple times, but I don't think they're going to at the moment. France are always inconsistent, but I just think that they will beat Italy. Ireland against Scotland. I think Ireland will win that. And we have Wales. Sorry, not Ireland. England. I've read that fucking wrong. England against Scotland. England will edge that, I think. Scotland have actually improved over recent years. Wales against Ireland. No, that's an interesting one. I think Ireland. Wales have been playing like shit recently. So yeah. Anyways, so before I go, let me check the chat. Thank you for all joining us. What's this link you posted? Yeah. Right. Hold on. Let me get that up on. Yeah. So yeah, I will highlight this for you, Osma. This is a campaign against what's happening with the ICE detention camps. If you want to help, please do donate. You can do so. Thank you for that, Osma. Actually, I forgot. I've got. Yeah, here we are. So yeah, if you want to donate, to this, against America's cruel immigration policies, and they do certainly seem very cruel, then please donate. Thanks for that, Osma. Anyways, I will be back on Monday, all being well. In the meantime, stay safe and peace out. Oh, bollocks. Before I go, please like, subscribe and share this video. And if you got any feedback, drop us a comment in the comment section below. So I keep forgetting to do that. Anyways, that is now the end of this stream. So take care of yourselves. Peace out.